This is Richard Wolff from Democracy at Work with another Wolff Responds. I want to talk about the economic significance of the United States withdrawal both from the war in Afghanistan and the war in Iraq, two of the largest, longest military engagements in U.S. history. And I need to call them what they are. They are defeats of and for the United States. It did not achieve its geopolitical objectives. The Taliban and the others opposed to the United States in Afghanistan are stronger now than they were when the United States invaded. And the opposition to the United States in Iraq is likewise stronger than ever and probably more unified. So let's look at what this means. For the two major wars of the major industrial, political, and military power in the world, these two losses of these two major engagements will not be lost on the rest of the world. They may elude the understanding of the American people, given the way the government and the media need to use terms and concepts like troop drawdown, staged withdrawal, strategic adjustment, and other phony terms to hide and obscure the failure there. We do not have a government in Afghanistan that can survive, and we don't have one in Baghdad either. When the United States announces, as it did recently, through the Marine Commandant in that part of the world, that we're hoping for a political solution, the obvious question raised across the world, except in the United States, is what? After 20 years, you're asking to have what people at the beginning said should be the solution, namely a political compromise, coalition government, something like that? 20 years later, and let's be clear, the war cost, the two wars together, trillions of US dollars. Trillions that might have been spent, say, on the infrastructure we now say is terribly dilapidated here in the United States, on building up a public health system that might have been able to handle COVID like other much poorer countries proved able to do, but this United States wasn't able to do. And you and I can both come up with all the things that might have been done to make the United States a better place, a safer place, than losing two 20-year wars at the same time. Extraordinary. Hundreds of thousands of people have been killed or wounded in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and among the so-called coalition forces, a coalition that was a fraud from day one. It was the United States with a smattering of other countries' token participations. The U.S. paid for it in lives, in injury, mental and physical, that will last into the decades to come. I recently saw a statistic indicating that whereas something like 7,000 people in the American military lost their lives in Afghanistan, 3 times that many have committed suicide once returned to the United States. They too were and continue to be casualties of this war. But of course, to be safe and honest, let me also say that most of those trillions of dollars were tax dollars that you and I pay to the government here in the United States, which it in turn paid out to the American companies that produced the guns, the planes, that constructed the bases, that provided the bullets, and the you name it for these wars. Those companies did well. Their shareholders did well. And yes, if you want to say so, their employees kept jobs they might otherwise have lost. In economics, we call that military keynesianism. You know why? Because much of the cost of the war was paid for by deficits. That's right. The government had to borrow a sizable chunk of what it spent on everything, including the military. That's right. Part of those wars made the deficits we now owe as a nation larger than they would have been in the absence of those wars. So yes, it's worth talking about the economics of these wars. The damage they have done is, of course, far beyond economics. But the thousands who came back with mental and physical problems, that takes a toll on the economy, and a big one. The upset and anger and the divisions in American society that those wars provoked, they take their toll on the economy. The hostility of the rest of the world watching the United States use its military dominance on two of the poorest countries on this planet, devastating them, that too takes its toll in countless ways we can't even trace. Put it all together, the defeats show that we can't do as a nation what we thought we could do. Classic imperial overreach is what the historians call this. And the economic costs are just one, and important, but only one part of the long-term costs to the United States and to its period as a superpower in the world that the loss of these two wars suggests may be coming faster than we had understood before. This is Richard Wolff for Democracy at Work.